All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Twins Daily Live, brought to you by Twins Daily, the finest source for independent Twins coverage in the entire world. I am your host for today's episode, Sweet Lou Hennessy, and I'm gathered here with the Twins Geek himself, Mr. John Bonus. John, how are you today?
I'm good, Mr. Sweetlou. How are you doing?
We're doing all right. I just got back from a walk with my dog, Ken Sniffy Jr.,
Yeah.
and I had to trudge through a good 3-4 inches of snow, and I'm gonna have to go shovel it after this. How much snow are you gonna have to shovel? Oh man, just rubbing it in, rubbing it in. It's a rough
Yeah,
life down there.
it's gonna be. We actually are expecting a cold spell on Monday and Tuesday next week, where the high is like 67. But today
Ooh,
it's still 80 degrees, 83 degrees. So yeah, we're gonna be all right. It is one of my underrated favorite things about spring training is that at the beginning of every Twins game, they give the temperature both in Fort Myers and the temperature in
oh
Minneapolis and St.
goodness.
Paul at the beginning. They announce that to the crowd, which always gets a big cheer. So
I'm sure. I'm sure. Well, I'm glad there's something for them to cheer about. It's probably been a weird couple of days at camp, I got to imagine, right? I mean,
it,
obviously, for
yeah.
those who maybe have not heard, the big news this week was that Pablo Lopez unfortunately came out of his live BP session with some elbow soreness, went in for imaging. Sounds like there's a significant tear of the ulnar collateral ligament, right? So,
And a strong likelihood of surgery. That is correct.
strong likelihood. Yeah, it is. As Greg likes to note, it is on the table. They like to say. So,
Yeah, and as Pablo said, yeah, he's looking at a second opinion as quote for a miracle. So
sure, sure.
yeah, it's not looking good. Looking like season-ending surgery for Pablo Lopez. In some ways that the timing of that is such that that at least makes him possible for the beginning of the 2027 season, or
Sure.
sometimes towards the beginning of the 2027 season. But yeah, after coming off of a disappointing 2025 where he spent most of the year hurt, he spent a lot of the off season making sure that everything was going to be fully 100% go, and they took a look at and then for that to happen to him. And the natural question is how much of this was related to anything that happened in 2025, and according to the MRI imaging, none of it.
Yeah.
That They took a look at his 2025 MRI and compared it to his 2023 MRI, which is when they signed him to the
Right.
long-term extension that he is on through 2027, and said that they didn't see hardly any differences at the end of 2025 first to 2027, and there's significant differences now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a bummer. It's and it's it creates new opportunities for some of the younger guys. I'm sure end up talking about that.
Yep.
But for a team that is already trying to convince not just its fan base but also itself that it really can be a competitive team, to lose the ace player on the first day of the first, in front of a full stadium, throwing live BP for the beginning of spring on day one with the full
Yeah.
team, tough blow.
It's a tough blow, no doubt. We will absolutely get into that a little bit more down the line here. David just wants to comment, say Pablo's a great pitcher and an even better man. Absolutely, he's just so likable. It's a shame, but we'll dive more into that injury later on in the show here. I just want a quick rundown for everybody who's joining us. This is how today's show is going to go. John and I are going to talk about some news and notes, some tidbits that he's been getting, some information from camp. Then we're going to introduce a new segment of Would You Rather, where I give John some hypotheticals, some pretty fun ones here, and he has to say which route he would prefer the Twins go down. After that, we'll get some more overreaction scouting report. We had some folks send in some of their hot takes that they want John to give a grade for. So that should be pretty fun. And then we have a few questions from the audience that were sent in via the social media platforms. Everybody watching live, feel free to send us any questions that you have, and we'll try to sneak those in as well. But John, let's dive right into it. Like you said, Pablo, that news was probably the biggest. That's the headline for this week so far. Knock on wood. Any other big updates that you've got, maybe in the last couple of days?
I mean, the other big thing that happened was the day before that, Tom Pollard came to spring training. Now that's that doesn't necessarily impact any significant roster moves on the team, but as far as an organization goes, the fact that they've got a very involved owner now suddenly is, if you were seeing Tom Pollard do the same things that the brand new owners that we thought we were going to have of the Minnesota Twins was doing, I think would be a lot more excitement around this team.
Sure.
What he talked about was, how basically, I mean, there's evidence, and that they went after, the biggest free agent remaining name on the market sometime in early February, late January. Now they didn't get him, and it's easy to say, "Oh, we finished a second, third, or fourth." But I can tell you from people working behind the scenes, they thought they had a decent chance of it. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't.
Sure.
I think he does want to be aggressive. It's just that there's very little left on the free agent market to be aggressive towards. And I just think, the fact that he wants to be involved as much as he is, he's been to spring training pretty much every day. He's been in the dugout. He's been talking to players. He addressed the team on day one, which is usually, sort of the manager does that. And the manager did do that. But then after that, Tom did that and apparently got everybody pretty fired up. So I do think that that is a significant story for the organization. It just might not be for the 2026 season.
Sure. Yeah. It's encouraging to see for sure. Say what you will about a lot of folks still just have a lot of distrust for the Pohlads as the figureheads here of the ownership, but we'll take him creating meaningful relationships with the players and the staff, as much as possible. Whether that bears any fruit down the line, we'll just have to wait and see. But I think I'll take this over some of the things that we've seen in recent years. And I'm curious. So he was in the dugout with everybody when Pablo came out, and people were kind of like, "Oh boy, this isn't looking good." Has he addressed the media since then?
I don't think so. No.
Okay.
I don't know that I've seen. I mean, I know he hasn't had a scrum or addressed the media about it. I do know whether or not he had some offside conversations that have been reported I might have missed. So
okay, yeah, fair enough. And also, it's not necessarily an owner's place to address the media after an injury like that. But at the same time, this is uncharted territory for Twins owners, as far as we've seen in
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. How about any other news and notes that you've seen, whether that's players coming in? We talked a little bit about, this person loves to say they're in the best shape of their life. Have you noticed anybody who's like, they have cut down since the end of last year or anything?
I will tell you, Derek Shelton is determined.
You're cutting out here, John. What I'm going to assume John was trying to say while he figures out his mic there is that Derek Shelton is in the best shape of his life. Yeah, still nothing here. While John figures out his mic here, looks like, let me see, might be muted. There we go. Bingo.
I don't know what happened. No, Derek Shelton is determined not to say those words.
Okay.
And in fact, as we had now where it's got almost turned into a little bit of a game in the session. Like, let's, how do you think the shape so and so came in? And he makes sure that he points out that he did not say the words "best shape of their lives." So,
okay.
Yeah, let's see. Have we seen? I mean, Brooks Lee looks. Well, he was somebody that was mentioned in one of these end of day sessions as somebody who looks like he's in the best shape of his life. But I don't. It doesn't mean that. I think part of what we're kind of interested in seeing with the game starting here is getting some StatCast data.
Yeah.
On some things. I'm going to be. I think I wrote earlier this week on Twins Daily about 5 different things I just want to watch in the games, like Brooks Lee's lateral movement being one of them, something like that. Things that I know that people have worked on. I'm going to be really interested in seeing some of the velocity readings for some of these pitchers, that especially some of the younger arms that we haven't seen yet. And that starts as soon as tomorrow. Tomorrow night we get the Twins playing the Gophers. I don't know if we'll get StatCast data on that. I do know I think Zebby Matthews is going to be pitching in it. Yep. So that'll be a fun way to kind of kick off the season. And then we've got a home game on Saturday, a road game on Sunday, a road game on Monday, and home games on Tuesday. Like it's here, kids. We don't have an off day now. We don't have an off day until I think March 2nd. So we'll be having, and I think we've got two games one of those days. So we'll have lots of data to take a look at.
You brought up velocity for some of these starting pitchers. I think it's, the young guys, that's going to be pivotal, especially someone like Zebby, who, when he was with the Saints last year, he was pumping 98, 99 in some of those starts early on. And he came on and got 10, 12 starts, I think, at the big league level. And his velocity was fine, but it wasn't at that, upper 90s level consistently, at least. So it's going to be good for him to hopefully see some uptick there.
We had a long conversation with Zebby today. He did a media scrum today, Yeah, always interested to talk to him because he does try to be pretty forthright in what he talks about. And this time last year, all the conversation was about his his.
Still cut here. With Zebby, his velocity is going to be key there. I'm rooting for him. He was one of my kind of X factors last year, and he's going to be this year too. I'm rooting for him on a personal level because in the media scrums, he just brings this kind of golden retriever energy,
That's true.
and I like it. So yeah, we're good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, anyway, one of the things we kind of talked about is he spent the offseason. He is really trying to figure out his consistency, and I think there's an argument to be made that the increased velocity that he had meant not as much work on sort of the off-speed pitches, and the off-speed pitches affect what keeps people off balance a little bit. So it's definitely been a focus this offseason on the off-speed pitches and trying to make sure that we can what's going on there. So
yeah, he's got one of the more full repertoires of any of the starting pitchers, including some of the veteran guys. Joe Ryan, of course, has the highest upside because he has those 2-3 really elite offerings, you got to think. But Zebby's got a full cabinet full of pitchers that he can turn to. And a lot of the folks behind the scenes really love his stuff. And we got a comment here that Eno Cyrus loves Zebby's stuff, which means I also love Zebby's stuff. That comes from
Bryce. If you take a look at Zebby's numbers, his OPS against versus, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of Cole Sands, but I mean, Zebby he's somebody who's had his batting average of balls in play has been higher than you would think it would be.
Yeah.
Now for both of the last 2 years. Now, maybe that's just the pitcher he is, but it does feel like there's you can make a pretty good argument that he's been unlucky the last couple of years. And maybe, yes, he probably.
Yeah, we're hoping that he is able to miss some bats for sure. I'm sure he's not super encouraged with maybe the Twins defense, infield defense that is behind him. That might play into some of these BABIP issues, but yeah, who knows. And
go again, back?
Yep, we're back.
Man, this is annoying. I wonder if we got a bad microphone or something, but we'll see what we can play.
Either way, we'll get through it.
All right.
Okay, so how about this is going to be hard to maybe glean from the first few days here. One question I posed to you in kind of our outline was anybody's sort of, did they have a change in attitude? One of the favorite segments on the Twins Off Daily podcast is Royce Lewis says the darndest things. And I've heard from a few folks down there that he's come in with maybe a different mindset, maybe a few noticeable growing up changes from Mr. Royce Lewis. Have you noticed anything? Yeah, so it's maybe John, maybe let's have you leave the studio and come back in through the link. Maybe that'll help here. But like we said, on the Twins Off Daily podcast, we like to play Royce Plays the Darndest Things. It's something that my co-host Greg Masterson came up with, and it's a little unfair to Royce. Everybody quotes can be taken out of context. Things happen, but Royce does have a penchant for maybe putting his foot in his mouth a little bit.
Well, I mean, maybe. I mean, I will tell you that the first press conference he had, and I wasn't there, so I'm speaking from other people who were there, was he definitely seems to have a, more mature attitude towards this. I don't mean that he was immature before. I just mean things came easily to Royce here. And that's odd to say, given the fact that he went through 2 season-long knee injuries.
Sure.
But the success came his way. It was always just a matter of I can turn it on. Like when I get up to the majors, I can turn it on. And then for the last year and a half, they didn't turn it on, right? And so we know that he went and got a new hitting instructor. And his attitude, at least in that scrum, was that of a person who is maybe a little less easygoing, maybe a little more serious, a little more and again, I don't want to be too critical of his attitude before, because that attitude of hey, this is fun, let's have a good time, that can be a valuable attitude as well.
Sure.
But something is that I think one way or the other, you could, however you want to portray it, there's definitely been a change in attitude in sort of Royce Lewis coming into this camp, or at least he seemed to display a different attitude in that first media scrum.
Sure. No, and that's encouraging to see. I want to say that his new hitting instructor that he got this offseason is somebody who worked with Bobby Witt Jr. in the past,
Yes,
and
that's
especially
correct.
focusing on some of these outside pitches. That's encouraging. It's not to say that you get a new coach and you he's not going to, get the Shazam powers or the Looney Tunes, the Space Jam, it's not going to suck all the powers out of Bobby Witt and put them in Royce Lewis or anything like that. But it's encouraging to, for somebody
we don't need him to be Bobby Witt Jr. We need him to be Royce Lewis.
Yeah.
I mean, Royce Lewis was seemed like almost a unicorn just 2 years ago, and what we've seen him is sort of fall off. Now, a lot of that was injury driven. The Twins kept all saying all off season they think it was injury driven.
Sure.
But this is, yet a little more evidence that he's determined to try and turn it around. It's important he does. Like there's about, I counted them up the other day. There's about 8 guys on this team that I think we thought they were going to be better than they are. They've all had a year and a half, 2 years, 2.5 years in the majors. And their sort of lack of taking an additional step forward is the difference between, the team last year that was 5-6 games under 500 going into the trade deadline and 5-6 games over 500 going into the trade deadline. Those 8 guys there's 4 hitters. Royce Lewis is at the top of the list. Wallner has been, trending downward, but still good, but trending downward. Larnach has kind of stalled out. And Brooks Lee, we're not sure, if he's going to hit the way we thought he was going to hit or if he can field the way we hoped he could field.
Sure.
And then on the pitching side, in the bullpen, you've got Cole Sands. And then on the starting rotation, you got Zebby Matthews and David Festa and Taj Bradley, who is new to the Twins, but has now gotten, 400 innings or something in the majors, something like that. All of those guys have the potential to be above average regulars. So far, they've been sort of regulars or below average regulars for the last 2 years. I mean, this team is going to go as far as I feel like those 8 guys can take them. If 6 of those guys take a big step forward, this is a really good team. If 2 of those guys take a big step forward, I think it's a team that might be selling at the trade deadline.
Yeah, that'll be something to track for sure, especially with the hitters. This is a group of players. They've had a lot of cooks in the kitchen the last few years. There's been a lot of coaching changes. There's now been a change in the manager here. They haven't necessarily had the most stability over the last few years, and maybe, establishing some of that this year, turning the page. They talked about that in the second half of last year. Sometimes it can be really hard to do that in season, changing that mindset a little bit. So, maybe give them a chance to do that with a fresh off season coming into a new season here.
And those guys also have additional pressure in that the Twins' top 3 prospects are all sitting there in AAA this year. I mean, there's if they don't, their time is to some extent running out. Kalen Culpepper and Walker Jenkins and Emma Rodriguez are ready to take a spot, and you've got some people that they traded for last year, like Alec Roden, and who also wouldn't mind getting a spot in here, or Wagaman might like a place in right field someplace, or Austin Martin seemed like he joined in. I was like, there's pressure below them, and there's room above them, and they need to advance that way.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I think that might be a good segue, John, into our new segment here of Would You Rather. So everybody, how this is going to work is I'm going to pull up some hypothetical scenarios here, and John is going to pick which route he would rather see the team take. One of these kind of young guys knocking on the door here is the Twins, I would say, top pitching prospect, at least the top 2 or 3, Mr. Connor Prelip. And the question I have for John is, would you rather Connor Prelip be a 2 times through the order starting pitcher? So, he's limited in his innings at the front end with an ERA in the 4 to 4.50, low 4s ERA. Or would you rather see him go in as a 1 inning reliever with a, better peripherals? Maybe he's got an ERA in the 3s and, maybe a little more amped up strikeout capabilities.
I think the hope is that he would be a better reliever than those numbers if he was a reliever. Like, I think their hope is that he would be an 8th inning, 9th inning kind of guy, or at least get to that point. Now, we haven't seen that yet. Even in AAA, we haven't completely seen that. He is training as a starter right now.
Yep.
I mean, I guess I would always choose the starter. Now, even if it's a 4.45 ERA, I'm going to say that is going to be to start out, and then we'll see where he goes. But so I guess that would be my default answer. With Prelip in particular, I think I'd probably lean towards reliever. I'm just worried about his health. I'm
I
worried
think that's fair.
about the workload being able to be on, and whether or not he can maintain. If he does start out as a starter with 4.5, and he gets his feet wet, and he's Simeon Woods Richardson's rookie year. Really,
Yeah.
very good enough that we're like, boy, are we glad that we have this guy on our staff.
Yeah.
I'm still not sure that I could count on that to be the case for him in 2028.
Sure.
Coming back from the injuries he has. So I guess I would lean towards reliever.
Okay. Simeon's actually,
regardless of the numbers, truth be told.
sure. Simeon is actually a really good comp for this scenario because he is somebody who gets protected in these starts. He is mostly a 2 times through the order with decent results, ERA right around 4. And it kind of depends on how you feel about him there. I think a lot of people are encouraged by what they've seen, rightfully so, with Simeon Woods Richardson, but he's reasonably a number 4 starter on a competitive rotation, right? I think that's fair to say.
And I think you could add him to the list of 8 names I just gave you as well.
Yeah.
As somebody who now he's somebody that I think has, overachieved to some extent of his based on his expectations, just because the expectations were lower for him coming into the 2024 season. But he is somebody who is been steady, but not really taking a big step forward. Although we started to see that when he added his splitter and really developed a splitter in August and September. So I think there's a lot of excitement. I mean, that's one of the things I would like to watch in the 2026 spring training. Watching when he gets the chance to throw his splitter and see what it does to people is one of the things I'm going to be very interested in watching.
Love it. That'll be something to track for sure. All right, your next would you rather scenario. This one's going to be tougher. Pablo López, would you rather the Twins sign him to a 3-year extension worth $45 million or let him completely walk after the 2027 season? So he's going to come back next year. If there is a baseball season, that's kind of up in the air right now, how long the MLB season is going to be in 2027, his last year under contract. So let's say, maybe he gets 20 starts. I don't know what it is, 20, 30 starts, somewhere between there. He's going to be coming back from his second Tommy John surgery here.
Sure, 25, let's say 25 starts. That seems about right.
Would you rather simply play out his contract or sign him to a 3-year extension that pays him through the year 2030? He's going to be a 33, 34-year-old by the end of that contract. That's something that this front office, at least in the last few years, they have not liked paying starting pitchers into their mid-30s.
Yeah, that's true. I would probably choose the 3-year deal. I've got a fair amount of faith that he is, he's come back from Tommy John once. He'll be, and it was a long time ago. I expect he's somebody that, takes care of himself very well. I feel fairly confident that he's going to return, maybe not to the ace level that he was, but
sure.
I mean, but that's certainly within range. I don't know that you want to expect that, but I think that's not crazy. And $50 million for 3 years. I think Pablo himself would be a little crazy to sign that deal.
Okay.
I think he'd probably rather walk than take that deal. If the Twins are going to look at a contract extension for Pablo, I wonder if they might do like a 1-year contract extension, something where they go, okay, we're going to keep you around. I mean, obviously you're going through Tommy John this year. Next year, we're all hoping for the best, your first year back, etc. But let's take the pressure off of both you and us in trying to get you back for Tommy John next year by getting another year on there. We'll extend the contract the same way we did, and you'll hit free agency a year later. Now that means he's hitting free agency as I think a 32, 33-year-old as opposed to a 31, 32-year-old, which doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but it's kind of a big deal.
Sure.
So I'm not sure that he would necessarily be open to that, but I think that's closer to the kind of contract extension that people would anticipate if everybody decides that that's the way they want to go. So
$15 million for one, per year. That is not a huge gamble. That is
right.
If there's the common valuation of one win above replacement being around $9 million on the free agent market, that's him less than a 2-win pitcher.
I think the Twins would be very excited to get him for a 3-year, $45 million extension at this point. So I would definitely rather take that.
Fair enough. I think a lot of folks would be with you on that too. All right. The next question we have for Would You Rather here. Would you rather undo the Louis Varland trade or undo the Yohan Duran trade and get, those same players sent back to their original teams? So for Louis Varland, that's Alan Rodin and Kendry Rojas. And for Yohan Duran, that's Mick Abel and Eduardo Tait.
Yeah, well, definitely not the Duran trade.
Okay.
I do not want to undo that one. I'm not sure I'd undo either one of them, but if I had to choose one, I'd probably undo the Louis Varland trade. Louis Varland would be under contract for a few more years than Duran, right? And having him, if they could rely on him right now in the 8th and or 9th inning this year, I think we'd be viewing the bullpen a lot differently than we do. That's where the gap seems to be. We're looking for the high end right-handed arm, and Varland would do that. But the truth is I am interested in watching how Kendry Rojas does and Alan Rodin does. I understand why the Twins made that trade. I honestly, I don't know Rodin's going to make this team. It's one of the things I'm going to try and be unpacking here, what the different bench and fringe roster players mix makes the most sense going into opening day. And I am looking forward to seeing more of Rodin because we saw so little of him.
Yeah.
But of the two, I would definitely rather make reverse the Louis one. And the question is I'm still not totally sure I would do that because I do think they've got a fair amount of hope that Kendry Rojas, that we're talking about him the same way we're talking about these other 4 pitchers at this time next year.
And with the Varland trade especially, I mean, the players they got in return are guys that the front office have a lot of, conviction about. It's not just they had to sell Louis Varland and they went to the highest bidder. It was they believed in, I think, especially Kendry Rojas and Alan Rodin, of course, to an extent too. But some people like to talk about because Rodin is maybe closer to the big leagues that he was the A piece in that return. And I think that's the exact opposite. I think Rojas was maybe the bigger get in that deal.
No, I think so too.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can take a look at it as well and say, if Kendry Ross does not develop into the starter that you were hoping he would become, well, then he's pretty good chance to become a reliever. And if he's a reliever, he could be about as good as Louis Varland. So in that, although you're delaying things and, there's some wish casting there, ultimately the downside of that play is not such a big downside, or there's a pretty decent that the expectations would be matching what you gave up, and that doesn't even include Alan Rodin as part of the package. Yeah, and that's assuming that Rojas doesn't develop as a starter. So
that's true. Yep, something to track for sure, just like with the rest of these. All right, your last would you rather, John. I think this one is going to interest you particularly here. Would you rather the Twins had $2 beers for 2 hours leading up to first pitch, or $2 beers for 2 hours after the end of the game?
Ooh, wow. Personally?
Yeah.
Well, if it was after the game, I could actually do stuff like be in the press box for most of the game, and even do the post game meeting with the manager, and then zip out of here and make it over to the thing. And I do like, one of my favorite things in the world is after a game sitting up in the truly on deck and watching them put the ballpark to bed. I love that winding down of a baseball game and just talking baseball with people. So I guess I would personally prefer the latter, but boy, would that be a disaster for them and for downtown Minneapolis. We cannot do that. No, that's a terrible idea.
They just started loosening up the, last year sold after, I think now it's after the 8th inning instead of the 7th inning. And now here I am trying to pry them open for more.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't even really have a problem with them limiting after game beer sales to just the truly on deck. That's probably the right call as well.
Probably. John, I know you also, last week we talked about, I had the kind of over under, I guess you could say, for $2 beers that you would have. And you got some extra information on this promotion. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
So it was, we did find out a little bit extra on that. Now I haven't found out exactly what the beers are. I'm just going to assume they're 12-ounce Bud Lights and Budweiser cans, because that's what they give for $5 at the family value place. But what we learned is that those $2 are available for everybody on Friday and Saturday.
Yep.
But for before the rest of the games, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? Those games were supposed to be for my Twins. Let's see, choice and rewards members, or no, choice and reserved members. Yeah. So anybody can be a My Twins member. You just go and sign up, right? I'm a My Twins member, and I've got the Twins Pass, but I don't have the Twins Pass because I'm a My Twins member. I just have the Twins Pass because I'm a member, right? And and that means that you can get, when you pay for things, you kind of show them this thing and you get points. And I got a free pullover at one point, and I got a free coffee mug at one point, something like that, right? But to get the $2 beers, you got to be My Twins choice or reserved member. And choice means you've got to basically give them sort of like $600 ahead of time that you can spend on tickets any way you want. And then you become a My Twins choice member. And a My Twins rewards member, or My Twins reserved member, is you have to be like a partial season ticket holder, like the traditional 20 game season ticket holder, or half season ticket holder, or full season ticket holder. So unless you are doing one of those, you will not be getting the $2 beers Sunday through Thursday, only on Friday and Saturday. And on Friday and Saturday, you can get them whether you're a My Twins member or not.
Sure. Okay. Well, that's some good clarification. I know that this has interested a lot of folks here. It would interest me a lot more if they offered some hams, maybe 12-ounce hams. Sure. I think it would behoove them too. Hams is pretty cheap. I'm pretty sure at my local shop here, it's cheaper than water. I mean, and so let's get some of the goods from the land of Sky Blue.
There's also you can also do sort of cost benefit analysis, and this is probably where we need to go a step further and find out what kind of beer they are actually giving you for the $2. Like if I can get a $9 beer for $2, well, then the break even point, then I'm saving $7 per beer, and for that $600 deposit, I need to drink about 90 beers.
I think you could get there.
Beers. I don't think that's unreasonable in an 81 game season beforehand. But if they're only the $5 beers, well, then you got to drink like what was that? 200 beers, which was interestingly the number you gave me on the overreaction time.
Yeah,
and so that I thought it was well timed that you would come up with that. Turns out.
Well, good. That's great. That's a lot of 9x9x9 challenges.
It's a lot of 9x9x9 challenges. Correct.
All right. Well, speaking of the overreaction scouting reports, we got some fun submissions, so we should just move on over to that here. We got some fun submissions. Most of these are from Twins daily contributors who wish to remain unnamed. So these are of the best in the business here.
I'm scared.
Here's the overreaction. Here's the overreaction here for you. Royce Lewis will be the second best defensive player on the team behind Byron Buxton. This one, there's some interesting factors because Royce made some strides defensively. I was impressed by how he was looking by the end of the year at third base there. But if anything, this question says more about the rest of the team.
Yeah, it does. I would say it's a 30.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that's much of an overreaction at all. I think, who's going to really compete with him? Maybe Alan Rodin in left field if we see Alan Rodin in left field, but I think we're going to see Larnach in left field. Maybe Jeffers if he, if framing stuff comes around. But I think that's a pretty, and I mean, we haven't really seen Keishel healthy at second base, so we'll have to see where he is. But I think that's not an overreaction at all. I think I'll give it a 30 out of 20 to 80 scale.
I think that's probably a fair grade. I think a dark horse in this conversation might be Emmanuel Rodriguez. I think he could look pretty good in the outfield, but again, he's got his injury concerns of his own, whether that means that he's not going to get a lot of playing time or if that means that he'll be hampered by some of these. So something to keep in mind, but Royce Lewis, let's hope he can keep making those defensive strides. All right. This one here comes from my podcast partner, Greg Masterson. I know everybody said they wanted to be unnamed, but had to throw him out here. A member of the Twins opening day rotation is not currently within the organization.
I don't think that's true.
Okay.
I do not think that's true.
I think that's an overreaction.
I think that's an overreaction. I'm guessing 60 overreaction. Okay. On that. I'm not going to completely close the door that they go and pick up a veteran starter at this point, just because I know they want to be aggressive. But if you take a look at the veteran starters that are available on the free agent market, I think they would rather give those opportunities to some of the younger arms that they have here. And, maybe once we actually start games in, 3 days and we see some of these younger arms on the mound and we see some of the stuff that they're doing. Just based on some of the talk that's going around for live BP, I think there's a lot of excitement about Taj Bradley. I think there's a lot of excitement about Mick Abel. I know there's always been a lot of excitement around Zebby Matthews, and with 2 spots sitting there in the rotation there, I think it's highly likely that those guys end up filling a couple spots. Everybody else, knock on wood, stays healthy, and we end up keeping there. So I'll put that as a 60 overreaction, maybe even a 70 overreaction. But I'll think it was 60. So
that's some all-star level overreaction. I love that. Okay, so just going back to the defensive question here, we got some funny comments or some interesting comments here. One is, I'm quite worried about how the defense is going to be borderline unwatchable this year. That's a big concern for a lot of folks. And then David says, if history means anything, Josh Bell will win a Gold Glove at first base. That would be some voodoo magic there. But hey, how hard can it be? It's first base. Tell him, Wash. How hard can it be?
It's incredibly hard.
Yeah. All right. Next up here on the Overreaction Scouting Report from a Twins Daily contributor, Luke Keeschel will be the starting second baseman for the American League in the All-Star game.
I heard he was going to be the AL MVP is what I heard the other day. Well, I'd have to take a look at what the competition is like at second base. I don't really have something off the top of my head. I will say that's an overreaction of probably a 70 overreaction. Okay. We were excited about Keeschel last year coming into the season, even though he wasn't on the roster, just based on what we had seen from him at spring training. We were excited about him. Even coming back from injury, we were excited about him. And then certainly his debut could not have gone better up until the point where he got injured about 7 days later.
Right.
So, there's got to be some regression here. He can't be quite this good.
Sure.
He can't have quite the impact that he had there before. So I think if anything, I think we need to, I would probably say I'm trying to tamp down my expectations on what I expect out of Luke Keeschel this year. So no, I will not. I will say that's an overreaction of a 70 that he will be the starting second baseman for the All-Star game.
I've just remembered, I think it was last spring training that Rocco loved to do this, where he would pick kind of one youngster, one prospect who would get just a ton of playing time, playing with kind of the starting lineup. And Luke Keeschel was that last year. I think maybe the year before it was Brooks Lee. We see that there is one kind of selection. I wonder if Derek Shelton is going to do something similar, if he's going to find a youngster who's going to get a ton of playing time. I'm curious to see who the next one would be. Yeah,
it's a good question. I am too. And I'm also interested in that because we've got the WBC going on. So there's going to be lots of opportunities for the first, week or two in if Buxton is on the American team for a week and a half or 2 weeks, why aren't we seeing? And on the one hand, they're trying to figure out who their backup center fielder is going to be. That's certainly a question. So on the one hand, you want to see somebody out there, but on the other hand, Walker Jenkins is in camp and Rodriguez is in camp, and maybe we can see both of them in center field pretty regularly and get a better idea what they can handle out there. So.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether it's one of those prospects. Maybe it's Alan Roden, seeing if he could be a suitable backup in center field. That would be good.
James Altman, seeing if he can hit.
Seeing if he can do it.
Maybe Kreidler, seeing whether he can play both backup shortstop and backup center field, give them an extra spot on the bench. There's a lot of different ways they could play that.
No doubt. All right, last couple here are pretty. We should be pretty quick with them. This hot take: Mick Abel is going to make more starts for the Twins this year than Bailey Ober.
I will say no. I will say that is a overreaction to at a. I guess I'll go 60 level, just a slight overreaction.
Sure.
I'm optimistic about Bailey Ober. I know coming off a year like last year where he would he end up with 20 starts, something like that, 25 maybe,
something like that.
Even that's a year in which he was hurt. And he ended up making 25 starts. He's been so consistent ever since he basically stretched out his inning limits back in 2022 or something like that. He has been super consistent, and it's part because he really works programs to try and maintain his strength and maintain his mechanics, because it's so important to him as a 6'8" guy.
Okay.
And because he's just got that work ethic, he's just absolutely that guy, right? He takes that crap really seriously, and because it's important, but for him, it's more important than it is, I think, for some other pitchers who can do it. And so, given the fact that I'm not sure Mick Abel's even going to be in the rotation to begin the season, And, I mean, I think there's a lot of excitement about Mick Abel. I'll say what I think I said last time. I was really excited about Mick Abel after his start against the Phillies too. I really was not that excited about Mick Abel before his start in the Phillies, like
Sure.
literally 5 hours earlier.
Sure.
So it's nice to see that he can do that, but we've got to see him do that on a consistent basis, and that has been the challenge for him in the minor leagues, is being able to consistently throw strikes. And now, as he gets better, as he gets older, and maybe as he gets more aggressive and gets ahead in the count, maybe that plays up. We'll see.
Yeah, we shall see. Another starter that's going to be in that mix, Mr. Taj Bradley. And this take comes from Cody Schoenman. He says that Taj Bradley will lead the rotation in wins above replacement this year in 2026.
Ooh, no, I'm going to say no on that too.
Okay.
Listen, I'm excited about Taj Bradley, and if you listen to Derek Shelton's post workout press conference a couple days ago, he was asked specifically about Taj Bradley's live BP session and talked about how impressive it was. Although he also talked about what was really impressive about Bradley was not just the stuff that he showed versus the hitters, but also just how he paid attention to holding base runners and seemed to really get the nuances of the game, which, I guess shows that, the actual hitting thing is almost on auto pilot. So, I mean, that's all a good sign. But we've also got Joe Ryan in this rotation now, for at least for now, at least till the trade deadline, we have him there. And like I said, I am also still a believer Simeon Woods Richardson has been a pretty effective starter now for the last 2 years and seem to be trending upward as well. So I will say that is an overreaction to at a probably a 60 level.
Okay, a lot of 60s today.
Maybe even a 70.
Okay.
Maybe I will go 65. We'll split the difference there.
All right. There you go, Comrade Cody. That's a 65 for your overreaction. All right, well, good stuff. People have been loving that segment. So everybody, if you're watching or listening to this at home, please feel free to send me or send John your hot takes, and we'll make sure to give them a grade the next time we're out here. We do have a couple of questions from social media here. Friend of the pod, Cody Christie of Twins Daily, asks, who leads the Twins in saves this season?
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. I mean, I think I need to know how healthy Liam Hendriks is, and I don't know how healthy Liam Hendriks is. I mean, he says he's healthy. He says he's ready to go, but to come back from all the injuries that he has had for the last few years and really find it again is significant. So I'm going to say Cole Sands is going to be the one who I just talked to a little bit. Cole Sands, it sounds like he's working on a new gyro slider to be effective versus left-handed hitters and so on. We talked a lot about. I'll try and do some notes on this, but he really felt like he had a pretty good year last year. If you take a look at his OPS versus right-handed hitters, OPS versus left-handed hitters, they both did pretty well. I think he was better this year than he was last year in both of them, but he just didn't really have quite the success. He had at least pretty even splits versus them.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm just second guessing myself on that stat. I think I was thinking of somebody else. But anyway, pretty even splits versus right-handers and left-handers, but he was just so much more able to strike out right-handers than he was left-handers. And left-handers ended up putting the ball in play, and I think that really hurt him last year. So I think he's working on trying to get past the left-handed situation. I think it's not uncommon that he might have a slight increase in velocity. We'll see that as we get through these spring training games. So I guess I will stick with Cole Sands as sort of my starter right now, and or my closer right now by the time the season finishes.
I think that maybe he would be the betting favorite. Maybe the only thing that would go against that is that he might be just your highest leverage arm. He might not necessarily be the saves, but he might be the fireman that comes in the 6th, 7th inning to really mow down the middle of the lineup. But I do think that he has the promise of being the top dog in the bullpen.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of save opportunities being split between Hendriks, if he's healthy, and Taylor Rogers to begin with in the season.
Sure.
But I also wouldn't be totally surprised if by the middle of the season, one of the arms from the minor leagues ends up being the 8th inning guy, and Cole Sands is elevated to the closer role too. So we'll see.
Could be. Let's see. Chris Hove asks, who will steal the most bases for the Twins? Is he on the roster right now? My take on this is it's Buxton until it's not.
I agree.
So I think he's got the best speed on the team, but at the same time, we saw the whole team, or a lot of the characters last year by the end of the season start moving a little bit more. So maybe Austin Martin wins a role, and
Well,
he's just
that's what
an
I was
on-base
just thinking.
machine.
Austin
Somebody like
Austin
that.
Martin might be the guy that you would most like. Austin Martin has to make this team.
Yep.
But I feel like, and then he also has to find playing time on this team, which is maybe even trickier.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think I think he showed well enough in August and September that, I think he's he has a really good opportunity to make the team. And I also think that, he'll probably find some ways to get into games and try and be aggressive on the base paths. So
fair enough. All right. Speaking of Buxton here, Bryce asks, percentage chance Buxton finishes career in Minnesota. Please say 100%. It's always tough to say because these things change so rapidly, but I'm going to lean towards 90-ish%, 85, 90%. I think that just from a marketing standpoint, they're going to want to keep him around, even if he's taking up a big chunk of salary capacity there. But Tom Pollard also said, maybe it won't be this year that we start ramping up payroll, but it will be in the next few years that we want to start getting back up to where we were before. Buxton still has 2 or 3 more years, I want to say, on his deal. I think he's getting paid through 2028.
That's a good question. I think that's right. I think it's 2028. I'll have to maybe double check that. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. That contract is going to end, and he has been productive.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's necessarily going to be done when that contract ends.
Okay.
So the question becomes, will he be sticking around past the end of that contract? Certainly. And we know so little about what 2027 and 2028 look like, not just for Byron Buxton, but also for the Minnesota Twins and also for Major League Baseball as a whole. That's after the collective bargaining agreement is done, right?
Okay.
So there's a lot to navigate through there. Just given all of that uncertainty that happens at that point, I will throw down a number of 75%.
Okay, I think that's pretty fair. Squeamish on Twitter asks, who is your biggest breakout candidate for this year? He says, ideally someone who has spent time in the majors and hasn't been good for more than an extended stretch. He said his breakout candidate is Cody Clemens and that he becomes an 800 OPS bat. That's optimistic, but we love to hear it, Squeamish. So, John, who's your breakout candidate for this year?
Well, it's going to have to be one of the 8 guys I mentioned.
Yeah.
Right. Or Simeon Woodridge. I guess I had him as the 9.
Okay.
I'm gonna stick with Zebby Matthews as my breakout candidate. Although, I mean, I don't honestly. You could throw a dart between him and Mick Abel, and now Mick Abel, I guess, wouldn't really count because he hasn't really spent that much time in the majors. So between him and Taj Bradley, I guess right now I'd probably lean Zebby Matthews just because I've seen that stuff more regularly than I've seen Taj Bradley's stuff.
Sure.
So from the pitching side, I guess I would say I'm going to say him. I'm going to say Zebby. And from a hitting side, does Royce Lewis count as a breakout candidate?
We'll say the artist formerly known as Royce Lewis. Maybe he's reincarnated a little bit here. He makes a new version of himself.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so he would be one, and then I'll also just throw Brooks Lee out there. I don't know if I probably do have an overly optimistic view of what Brooks Lee is and what he has worked on this year, but I wouldn't be shocked to see Brooks Lee just because we talked a little bit about this, I think last time. The areas that he has been weak in are the areas he was strong in the minor leagues. And so I feel like though there's a better likelihood that he bounces back, with his left-handed bat and with his ability to put the ball in play more. I mean, if his right-handed bat can hit for some power and his left-handed bat can hit for some average, and, to what extent, if he can improve to be like a average-ish shortstop or get moved to another spot in the middle infield because the Twins find a better shortstop in the minors. I feel like he could be somebody that next year we're talking about him as a somebody that we how do we ever have any doubts that he developed?
Sure.
So.
That's got to be the hope. I mean, the hope has to be that we've just seen Brooks Lee at his lowest point in his career, right? But this was his year. And granted, he's still, I'm not saying he's super young or anything, but this is the time when young players start figuring things out, and you got to give him a chance to bounce back here. So he's a good one. I'm wondering what a true Matt Wallner breakout looks like. That could be, you know what I mean? Because, you know, same thing. Maybe we just saw Matt Wallner at his lowest, and that was still a above average hitter. That was still,
or for that matter, Trevor Larnach. I mean, these are all guys that have kind of treaded water for the last 2-3 years. It's not that they've been bad. It's just that they haven't gotten good, you know? And so it'll be interesting to see if one of them can, you know, really start swimming, and we'll see some big changes. So.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Last question we have here is from Boof Bonzer's Beer Belly. He asks, is 44-year-old Justin Morneau the best defensive first baseman in the organization right now? I hear that at camp, Morney's been playing a little bit of first, you know, shaking balls or whatever, and he's still got the ability to pick it.
Sure, of course he does. You'll have to ask more. Maybe I'll ask Morneau that, as whether he thinks that's the case. Oh boy, I don't know who the best first baseman is. And I don't know that it matters too much. Give me a passable first baseman, and I will be happy enough with what we've got. So
yeah, give me somebody who can touch their toes. I think that's what Greg has been saying. So he can get down there. All right, well, very good, very good. Everybody, thank you for submitting those questions. If you're listening to this after the live recording, please feel free to send us these questions for our next episode.
Right.
Our next episode, I believe, John, will be on Tuesday. We're aiming for Tuesday, probably around this time, but we're still nailing down the details. But it's looking like Tuesday morning, the 24th. So
that's right. By then we'll have, let's see, two Grapefruit League games to talk about.
Okay.
So we'll see who pitching in those things. So that'll be exciting.
That will be great. We'll get some more data there. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Please make sure you check out the Gleeman and the Geek podcast. John and Aaron do an excellent job. It's must listen for every Twins fan. And when you're ready to have some more fun with some of these games, like the Would You Rather, the Overreaction Scouting Report, hop on over to the Twins Off Daily podcast. We love having some fun with Twins fans. So please join us there. But on behalf of John, I am Sweet Lou Hennessy saying thanks, everybody, and stay sweet.